Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Bienvenidos a todos. Voy a dar un resumen de los hechos, de los acontecimientos en español, luego de la presentación de Vanessa Potkin del proyecto de inocencia y luego de tomar preguntas de los representantes de la prensa en inglés. Welcome to everybody. We are here to talk about the latest events in the case of Melissa Lucio. Without further delay, I'm going to hand this off to Vanessa Potkin for a summary of what happened today and the significance for Melissa Lucio.
The Court of Criminal Appeals did the right thing today by stopping Melissa's execution. The court's stay sends Melissa's case back to the trial court so that 4 of her claims can be heard. Her claim of innocence, her claim that the state used false evidence to obtain her conviction, and her claim that the state hid from her defense attorneys favorable evidence at her trial. The court stay allows us to continue fighting alongside Melissa to overturn her wrongful conviction. It would have shocked the public's conscience for Melissa to be put to death based on false and incomplete medical evidence for a crime that never occurred. The medical evidence shows that Mariah's death was consistent with an accident. If it had not been for the state's use of false testimony, no juror would have voted to convict Melissa of capital murder because no murder occurred. The stay gives us the opportunity to go back to the trial court and to present the evidence of Melissa's innocence that no court has ever considered. This is the first time that a court will be hearing evidence of the new evidence of Melissa's innocence and the evidence that false testimony was used to obtain her conviction 14 years ago. 100 days ago to the date of her execution, the Innocence Project joined Melissa's legal team, and we did so because we recognized that an innocent woman was headed to be executed. It was through a groundswell of support. It was through members of the community coming together, leadership from state lawmakers in the House of Representatives, bipartisan support from Republicans and Democrats, faith leaders, anti-domestic violence organizations. The amount of support, the unprecedented support for putting a halt to Melissa's execution was indicative of the fact that there's so much evidence of her innocence and nobody wanted to see a woman put to death for a crime that never occurred. Sandra, are you making a statement or did we want to open it up for questions?
Sorry, I just wasn't sure if you'd finished your statement. Yes, we will open it up for questions and I will give a statement. In the end, I will address some of the Spanish language questions. So first, I saw a question from CNN. Can you please walk us through the next steps of the case and what context and venue will the trial court review Melissa's claims? And I'm going to hand that over to Tavone Chartle, who is one of Melissa's lawyers and the federal defender, assistant federal defender for the Western District of Texas.
Hi. So the case will go back to the trial court in Brownsville, Texas. And the first thing the court will have to do is decide whether the judge should be disqualified from the case. After that, there will be proceedings on a hearing, as Vanessa was saying, to hear the evidence of Melissa's innocence. And that court will then make a recommendation to the Court of Criminal Appeals, who will ultimately decide whether Melissa should get a new trial. Of course, along the way, we will be speaking with the district attorney and urging him to give due consideration to the new evidence of Melissa's innocence that he thus far hasn't had an opportunity to really evaluate and to judge for himself. So we hope that going forward, reason and science will carry the day, and Melissa will get a recommendation from the trial court joined by the state of Texas to get a new trial.
Another question, can you briefly, run us through her instant habeas application that the Court of Appeals reviewed? This is from Nidia with Univision.
So the petition that the court reviewed had a number of claims in it. Most of the claims were granted. I believe there were 9 claims in total. 9 claims. 4 of them were sent back to the trial court for consideration. Those are, as Vanessa was saying, that the prosecution relied on false testimony to convict Melissa, that the prosecution suppressed evidence of her innocence prior to trial, that she is in fact innocent, and that new scientific evidence proves that she's innocent.
This is from CBS News, Melissa Lucio. If the court recommends a trial, will DA Science be the one to prosecute Melissa? And related to that, from Stephanie Rosales from Channel 5, what are the next steps for Cameron County District Attorney? What have you heard from Luis Science?
We have not heard anything from Mr. Science. There is a pending question about whether he will be the one to prosecute the case or to be involved in the case going forward. There is a motion pending in the trial court to disqualify him from further participation in this case. So we'll just have to resolve that once we get back down into Brownsville.
Question from ABC. Can you please explain what the stay of execution accomplishes? How long is the stay for? And is Melissa still technically on death row at this time?
So the stay, I'm sorry, Vanessa, please.
The stay of execution issued today put a halt on Melissa's execution indefinitely so that we can go back to the trial court and have hearings on the new evidence of her innocence. She does remain on death row at this time.
Question from KXAN News, Jala, Washington. Now that the court stayed her execution, is there anything left for the Board of Pardons and Paroles and or the governor to decide? Could they still grant clemency and moot out the need for a retrial? Tivone?
The board will not vote on the clemency petition now that there's been a stay and the courts are considering whether to leave the judgment against her intact. It makes sense. You know, they're not going to decide whether to commute a sentence if the court might toss out the conviction itself. And that would make the sentence go with it. So they have set that aside, and there won't be a ruling on that.
I think that one aspect of today's ruling that's really, important is that it gives Melissa the opportunity to have further proceedings on her new evidence of innocence. And so, she now has the opportunity to get back into court and to present the evidence of her innocence to a court, which has, never ruled on this evidence. And the end result could be that she could obtain a new trial. And we're confident that with the evidence of new innocence, if Melissa was retried today, that she would be acquitted. And all of the medical evidence is in support of what Melissa has been, saying from the beginning, that this was a tragic accident and there was no murder. And so it is a great, there's still a long way to go in Melissa's case. And there's, much more that stands in the way of Melissa and an exoneration. But today's stay and remand to have hearings on the new evidence of her innocence really opens the door to the potential of a new trial in her case and ultimately complete vindication.
There's a question from Mr. Lozano from AP relating to the clemency petition. Did that just answer your question, Mr. Lozano? I think the additional question is whether or not we'd have to file a new clemency application or whether this one will remain pending.
If the judgment remains intact, there would be a new clemency application after this, if that remains in place. But as Vanessa was saying, this will be the first opportunity for a court to consider whether she should have been convicted at all. And so we're optimistic about persuading the court that the evidence shows there was no murder and they should vacate the judgment against Melissa altogether.
Again, for reporters who are joining us from Spanish language television stations or outlets, I'm happy to answer questions in Spanish after we go through, but unfortunately I'm not an interpreter, although it could be that we have somebody on the call who could serve that purpose, but I unfortunately am not an interpreter and cannot do that. The question from Lilia Luciano was a follow-up question to you, Tivone, I think, about the disqualification regarding the prosecutor's science. I think you had said that there's some doubt about whether or not he would be involved in this case going forward. Is that because of the disqualification motion?
Yes, that's right. Because Melissa's trial attorney and his assistant went to work for the district attorney, we believe there's a conflict of interest there. In addition, of course, the Court of Criminal Appeals has sent the case back for a hearing on false testimony presented by the prosecution and the suppression of evidence by the prosecution. So it would be best for the district attorney to be recused from the case, to be removed from the case, and to have an impartial prosecution office take over.
A question about from Victoria Law about conditions of confinement. Is she in 24-hour solitary confinement?
Everybody on death row in Texas is in solitary confinement, including Melissa. She is able to interact with other people, other women on death row now. Recently, she wasn't able to because of the looming execution date, but her conditions will be relaxed a little bit so that she can resume, hopefully, her work outside at the prison and interacting with other folks, but it's very limited.
Question from Rebecca Hennis, Houston Chronicle. How soon could Melissa actually be released in a best case scenario?
Well, that's hard to say, but if the prosecution follows the evidence, I think they will agree with us that the conviction should be vacated. And our position would be that at that point, the charges ought to be dropped because there was no murder. But it will be up to the Court of Criminal Appeals to decide whether the conviction can be thrown away. Only in Texas, under current law, only the Court of Criminal Appeals can vacate the conviction. So in order for her to be released, they would have to make that decision.
Question from CBS News, Lilia Luciano. How did Melissa learn of the news and what was her reaction? How is she now?
Melissa actually learned of the news from Representative Leach, who, became involved in Melissa's case, who really delved into the facts and became such an important advocate for making sure that this execution didn't go forward. And he reached out to have a conversation with Melissa and was not aware that she hadn't heard the news yet. And he broke it to her. And as you can imagine, she just, she sobbed. I mean, she was within essentially 48 hours of her potential death. And to hear that the court had issued a stay, that there was a halt to her execution, and that she would finally have a day in court to present the evidence of her innocence, she was just overwhelmed. And just to think of what has happened in, the lead up to this with Melissa and her family, going through the absolute torture of not knowing if this execution would go forward. And so she was just, she was sobbing and beyond words, and just has an immense amount of appreciation and recognition for the fact that this day came about because of the energy of so many people shining a light on her story, using their voice, and really advocating for her in so many different ways.
I'm going to just make one statement in Spanish because some of our Spanish-speaking colleagues are on deadline. And I just also wanted to add how happy we all are as members of Melissa's legal team. This is a wonderful day for Melissa, for her family, for all of her supporters, and for all of us who have been fighting for Melissa. And it was a joy to hear how happy she was when she received the news and how happy her family is. These days don't come very often, so we are all enjoying this moment. En español, para los miembros de la prensa españoles que hablan español, estamos ahora muy contentos por el resultado y por el fallo que emitió la Corte de Apelaciones Criminales de Texas hoy por la tarde. La Corte de Apelaciones Criminales suspendió la fecha de ejecución de Melissa. Es una suspensión indefinitiva. Eso significa que el caso ahora va a la Corte de Primera Instancia para una revisión del fondo, una revisión de todos los alegatos que presentamos en la petición de habeas corpus que tratan de la inocencia de Melissa. Específicamente presentamos en la petición 4 alegatos en relación con la inocencia de Melissa. Es decir, que el fiscal presentó testimonios falsos durante el juicio de Melissa hace 14 años. Segundo, que el fiscal escondió o que no dio a la defensa pruebas que habían podido comprobar la inocencia de Melissa. Tercero, que Melissa es de hecho inocente de toda actividad criminal. Cuarto, que hay nuevas pruebas, evidencia científica que no era disponible antes, que de hecho establece que Melissa es inocente y que el delito que no hubo, en actualidad que no hubo un delito, que la muerte de Mariah fue una tragedia, pero no fue un homicidio. Entonces ahora es la Corte de Primera Instancia que debe de programar una audiencia y un proceso para que tengamos la oportunidad a demostrar que Melissa merece un nuevo juicio. I'm going to go back now to questions from the pool. We have a question from Tanvi Varma with KVUE News. Now that it's going back to the lower courts in Brownsville, will they first have a pre-trial to decide if there will be a trial?
So right now the case is going back. Melissa's case has been sent back to the trial court to have an evidentiary hearing so we can present evidence and witnesses to determine whether or not a new trial is going to be ordered. So this is a first step in obtaining a new trial, but a new trial has not been granted yet.
In answer to Meredith Humans with KXAS, there are no members of Melissa's family on this call. I don't believe they were on a press conference just preceding this one. And there are so many people on the call that I cannot tell if they're on the call.
They are, Sandra. I think that I see I may be mistaken, but I think that some of her siblings and mother might be on the call.
Yes, I see Diane and Esperanza.
Mm-hmm.
And Sonia in the back.
Hi, Yvonne. Hello.
Hello, hello,
Hi.
everybody.
Hi. Hello. Say hi, Mommy. Say hi, Mommy.
Hi. Hi.
And so the question from KXAS, hello, everybody, is whether you would like to comment on your reaction to the news from the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals.
No, they're unmuted. You're unmuted.
We're very excited. The feeling is just
Overwhelming.
overwhelming. Yes, it's we
Our
cry.
faith got us through this, and we were scared, of course, but our faith has always been with us that Melissa is going to come home, and we can't thank you all enough. We owe so many people thanks, especially the legal team. Thank you all so much. The Innocence Project, so many. We're just so excited, and we're waiting. We're waiting for Melissa to come home. Yes. ¿Quieres decir algo, Mom?
¿Quieres decir algo?
No.
Estás con los attorneys.
Con los attorneys, Mom, ¿verdad?
Gracias.
Las gracias, Mami.
Gracias.
In English.
Say thank you, Mom.
Thank you for the supporting for the supporters of Melissa, and thank you for everybody, and to God, to
Thank God first. Yes.
thank God for the miracle that He made. Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you for being here. We're so happy for you, and we're so happy for Melissa. And it's wonderful to share this moment with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're very thankful to all of you, the legal team, everybody, Jeff Leach, everybody that has helped us and has stood by my sister and her innocence. We're very thankful. And the senator and the bishop also, Senator Lucio.
Bishop Flores.
And Bishop Flores.
Thank you.
Yes.
One of the extraordinary things about this case that Vanessa has already mentioned is how many people came together to make this happen. And even among the members of the legal team, we are 3 people, but the legal team is much bigger than the 3 of us. And there are many people that played vital roles, from paralegals to investigators and mitigation specialists, the experts who came together on this case, nationally recognized experts who jumped in at a moment's notice because they recognized the injustice that was about to happen. There are too many people who were involved in this case to recognize all of them, but it is worth signaling out the extraordinary bipartisan support that Melissa received and how unprecedented that is. It has never happened in the history of the American death penalty in any case in any state. And that is a measure of just how extraordinary this case is and how compelling the evidence of innocence is in Melissa's case. I'm going to go back to some of the questions here. ABC, if Melissa has already exhausted all of her prior appeals, how was this decision reached and how does this differ from those other appeals?
Yeah, there's a very high bar that a person in Melissa's position has to clear in order to get back into court and get their claims considered by the trial court again. And it was because of this team effort that Professor Babcock was talking about and all of the experts coming together that the Innocence Project and the other lawyers in the case were able to present a compelling case to the Court of Criminal Appeals to clear that high bar. So they had to, take a first look at it and decide that there was enough evidence of Melissa's innocence to justify reopening the case and sending it back for consideration of these claims. And those claims, again, are about false testimony being used to convict an innocent woman, the state suppressing evidence of her innocence in order to advance their case, and that she is just plain innocent, and that the science that's developed since her conviction shows that she's innocent. So each of those things had to satisfy the Court of Criminal Appeals. The evidence, the arguments had to satisfy them, and they were satisfied, and that's how the case got reopened.
I would just add that it is, once somebody is wrongly convicted, it's extraordinarily difficult to get back into court, and especially after all appeals are exhausted. But there are procedures to get back into court where there's new evidence of innocence, or where the science has changed since trial, and where, like here, the state used false evidence to obtain a criminal conviction or withheld exculpatory favorable evidence.
All right, going back to Juan Lozano with Associated Press. While there's no date for hearing in the lower court in Brownsville, will the process to get into the lower court and have a hearing and for the lower court to make a recommendation, will this be a weeks-long, months-long, years-long process? How long will it take?
A lot of that depends on what the district attorney decides to do, whether it's Mr. Sines or somebody else. We certainly want Melissa to get her hearing as quickly as possible while marshaling all of the evidence of her innocence so that she gets a fair hearing and a full hearing. So we can't say exactly how long, but we certainly don't want her to spend one day longer in prison than is absolutely necessary.
All right, we just got a question about, I'm sorry, y'all, the questions are coming so fast that I can't keep up with everybody in real time. Wanting to know the names of the family members who just gave a statement. So that was Esperanza, Melissa's mother, and Sonia, Melissa's sister, and was it Diane, who was half off the screen?
Yes, yes. Diane.
And let's see. And the names and spelling of the family members who spoke. Can somebody on the team put those in chat, please?
I think they're in the chat.
Oh, they are. Okay, thank you very much. All right, I think those are all the questions that I'm seeing. Is there anybody who had a question that I did not ask? And would anybody, yeah. Okay, if there are no other questions from English language press, we will take questions in Spanish.
We have a question.
Yes.
Are we allowed to visit our sister? Are we allowed to visit?
That'll be up to the prison, Sonia, and I'm sure that they will want to accommodate you. I know that John and Bobby and Michelle were there earlier today, so we can help you with that and making those arrangements.
Thank you.
When will we know?
They're gonna try, Mama.
Another question from the Houston Chronicle. Just want to confirm that there are motions concerning both the judge and the Cameron County DA to remove them from the case, including from the evidentiary hearing.
That's correct. That's right.
Entonces, en español, ¿hay otras preguntas sobre el proceso, los acontecimientos que puedo contestar? Ok, nos pudieran explicar lo que sigue para descalificar al fiscal Sáenz. Esa es una pregunta que debo preguntar a mi colega Tivón. one of the questions is, what is going to happen next with the disqualification of science? Is that have to be decided by the judge in the trial court after she decides on her own disqualification? Sorry, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, that's exactly right. First, the Court of Criminal Appeals ordered the judge to decide on her own disqualification or to send it to another judge to decide her disqualification within 3 days. So that'll have to happen first. And then whichever judge remains on the case will decide the disqualification of the district attorney if he does not recuse himself.
Nidia, do you need me to say that in Spanish, or did you get it? Mientras tanto, Paco Cobos, ¿eso abre la puerta a un nuevo juicio? Sí. Es precisamente lo que pasa. La Corte de Primera Instancia tiene ahora que decidir si hemos establecido violaciones de los derechos humanos, los derechos constitucionales de Melissa, que merecen un nuevo juicio. Entonces, la etapa que tenemos ahora, la oportunidad que tenemos ahora es mostrar que Melissa merece un nuevo juicio. Si logramos ante la Corte de Primera Instancia en Cameron County, luego la Corte de Apelaciones Criminales tendrá que revisar el fallo, las conclusiones de la Corte de Primera Instancia, y luego, si la Corte de Apelaciones Criminales está de acuerdo que Melissa merece este nuevo juicio, el nuevo proceso, Melissa tendrá una oportunidad en un juicio ante un nuevo jurado de comprobar su inocencia. Pero, como dijo Tivon Charlo, mi colega, esperamos que si logramos en obtener un nuevo juicio, que el fiscal podría decidir que no va a pedir o que no va a buscar una condena, una nueva condena para Melissa, porque nosotros creemos que no hay pruebas fiables, confiables, que podrían mostrar la culpabilidad de Melissa. Melissa no es culpable y la muerte de Mariah fue un accidente, fue una tragedia, pero no fue un homicidio. Entonces, si un día logramos obtener un nuevo juicio para Melissa, esperamos que en ese momento, en ese día, que el fiscal podría decidir a desechar todos los cargos. ¿Cómo reaccionó Melissa al recibir esta noticia? Melissa recibió una llamada del diputado Leach de la legislatura tejana, que logró llamarla en la cárcel mientras una visita que tenía con el equipo legal. Melissa fue sorprendida, muy alegre, lloró, gritó y exprimió su agradecimiento a toda la gente que ha apoyado a su defensa, a su caso. Es lleno de gratitud para todos que han ayudado a lograr esta oportunidad para ella. Okay, anything else okay, Nidia, you need in Spanish about what's happening with the fiscal science. Hace varias semanas presentamos dos mociones para descalificar el fiscal y para descalificar la jueza que está en la Corte de Primera Instancia. Hasta el momento, no han, la juez en la Corte de Primera Instancia no ha decidido las dos mociones. Entonces, antes de decidir si el fiscal es descalificado de proceder con el caso, la juez tiene que decidir si ella misma es descalificada. Entonces, luego de resolver esta primera pregunta, ella tendrá que resolver la segunda. Y luego de esas decisiones, sabremos si el fiscal quedará en el caso o no. I think those are the only questions I'm seeing. Is there anything else? If there is nothing else, then I think we can wrap this up. Laura, one more time, can we get the spelling for the mother? It should be back in the chat. It is Esperanza, Esperanza, Trevino, Trevino. Sorry, you already did that, Alicia. You're faster than I am. Is it Trevino or Trevino?
Trevino.
Trevino.
Yes.
Trevino with an N. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Gracias a todos por venir. And Laura Burstein will continue to keep you all informed. And she can answer the question about whether the link to the recording will be provided.
It will be. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you for your coverage of Melissa's case.
We just heard there from 3 attorneys representing Melissa Lucio. We found out earlier today that the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals issued a stay in her execution. She was set to die on Wednesday, so this hearing, of course, prevents that from happening. What the attorneys there said a few moments ago is that this is really the first step in granting a new trial in her case. They say that they are arguing that there is new evidence showing her innocence in her 2-year-old daughter's death and that it was an accident and not an intentional act of murder. We will continue to monitor this situation. I will let you know that one of our reporters is working on a story that will air this evening on KXAN News, so you can tune in then. We will also have updates, including ongoing reaction to this news over on our website, kxan.com. Another new article just went up a few moments ago from one of the Texas lawmakers who actually broke the news about this stay of execution to Melissa Lucio earlier today. You can hear that audio right now on our website. Just go over to kxan.com and you can see that right on our homepage and listen to that audio, an incredibly emotional phone call as this Texas lawmaker relays to Melissa that her execution is not going to happen on Wednesday. In fact, he says, you are going to wake up on Thursday. That again is on our website. You can also view it on our news app. Please download KXAN News mobile app onto your smartphone if you haven't done so already, because all this reporting is available to you right at your fingertips. Thank you all again for watching here on KXAN Live. I'm Will Dupree. We will see you back here another time, everybody. Please stay safe and healthy out there, and take care.